bodies. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Where are my flag holders? I don't know, Robert. I guess you are, Robert.
Yeah.
I mean, a Marine ought to know how to do that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And this is also a Marine. Yes, hoorah! Hoorah!
Hurrah!
And anybody from the Naval Academy should come up here and give us 20.
Woo! Okay, so while our Marines are folding the flag, I'd like to recognize a couple of elected officials that we have in the audience. We have School Board Member Laura Hughes. Yay. We have our City Treasurer Lee Henderson here. And she's also a candidate. And we have Bill Curtis, who's the City Committee Chair. And Robert Dean, who is the Chair of the Libertarian Party. Tom Gilly, who's the organizer of 912 First Landing Patriots. Are there any other elected officials in the audience? Well, he's a candidate. Okay, so, yes, okay. Well, speaking of that then, we're going to give the candidates 10 minutes each to speak. I emailed them questions. They can use their time to introduce themselves, answer those questions, or take questions from the audience. And we'll start with the Commissioner of the Revenue, Mr. Ben Loyola. Yeah, you will be first.
Never get to eat, just as I'm about to eat the French fry.
Oh,
You want me to say, am I supposed to stay right here? Am I planted or can I?
you can move around, but
Not too much. I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
Go between there and the sign.
And they only gave me 3 inches, so we're stuck here.
Oh. No. Okay.
Let me know when you're going to start, and I'll start the time.
You're live.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ben Loyola. I'm running for the Commissioner of the Revenue here in Virginia Beach, Virginia. A little bit about my background. I was actually born in Havana, Cuba, under a communist regime. And thanks to sacrifices my parents made, I came to truly the greatest country in the world. I'm so blessed to be here. My parents fled a horrific environment of communism that was during the revolution. And I saw a lot of stuff there that sadly I'm seeing inklings of it here in America. And that's some of the reasons I've served in the military. And then basically the current modern day battle is why I'm running for office. Coming to America, my parents instilled in me the importance of education and hard work. I thrived. I ended up applying to the United States Naval Academy and got picked up. And then my degrees in marine engineering, one of the more challenging degrees, that was the reactor physics degree. I remember chalkboard equations started on one chalkboard, and at 3 chalkboards later, we got the answer. So I know numbers really, really well. After graduating, I got my commission and became a naval aviator, Pensacola flight training, and then ended up serving under a great commander-in-chief who understand that we have to have strength to ensure our peace. And fought in combat off the coast of Libya and took out some terrorists and some bad guys. Ended up serving 30 years, retired as Navy captain. A lot of my career has been in this area as well, besides the deployments overseas in the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean. And then I started an engineering services firm here in Virginia Beach. Currently, it spans 5 states. I'm very honored to have a wonderful company. And the city of Virginia Beach has a purchasing council who awarded us the Small Business of the Year. And also the Virginia Chamber of Commerce also awarded us the Virginia's Fantastic 50. So I was very honored with that as well. So I understand business. I understand service to country. And I know the numbers real well. And I'm running for the Commissioner of Revenue because there's a lot of things that need to be happen. The Commissioner of Revenue is involved in the tax receipt for business licenses and pretty much everything but property tax, all the other taxes that come in through the city to basically pay for our infrastructure and the things the government does. But there's a big lack of service. Like in a business, the product and services that we offer have to be accepted, and we have to ensure customer service. And that's not happening right now. The office has been politicized, and it should be an office that's supporting the taxpayers and doing everything possible. And right now, we just had a financial report card on the state of Virginia by Motley Financial Group that said Virginia is number 49th in the country. We beat out Connecticut, and they actually had 51 states, which was Washington, D.C. So we're really right at the bottom, and it needs to turn around, and we will turn that around. I'm committed to doing that. The office applies all sorts of tax regulations to ensure that people pay what's necessary, but also there's all sorts of laws in the books to help relief programs to ensure there's opportunities to lower your tax base. And there's over 14 different programs for elderly, disabled, first responders, veterans, widows, all sorts of different programs. Even your vehicle, high mileage, dents, scratches, all sorts of stuff. And the Commission of Revenues, I feel, by working for the taxpayers, should be an advocate for the taxpayers, not a political powerhouse and what's been happening in the past for 24 years now. So that's one of my top priorities, ensure outreach. If you look at Commission of Revenues in other areas, other regions, they have outreach programs, town halls, newsletters, doing everything possible to ensure you're informed, to make the process. Unfortunately, no one likes the process of paying taxes, but make that process as efficient, as clean as possible. And I'm committed to doing that and outreaching and being, again, a servant of the public. The other area is looking at the current laws in the books and the current taxes. Classic example of how many business folks here tonight? Several. So the B-poll tax. B-poll tax is based on the gross receipts, business professional occupancy license tax. That was actually, rewind the time clock, the War of 1812 tax. And unfortunately, the government got a hold of that money and never gave it back and still hasn't. So the Chamber of Commerce, the Retail Alliance, many elected officials that understand fiscal responsibility and accountability have tried and worked towards getting rid of that tax. And everybody wants to see it because it's just wrong. It's based on gross receipts. So you're a booming company, high profitability, everything's going great. You pay the exact same amount of money as a startup business that's having a tough time during COVID or whatever the case might be. And it's because it's based on gross receipts. And it's just wrong. Tax on your property. So you have a hammer, you have some equipment, you have some office equipment. They tax you on all that gear, all that equipment, and you're supposed to keep an Excel spreadsheet and turn it in the city. It goes in kind of in a dark hole. A few weeks later, comes back and say, "Here's your bill." Boom, you pay the bill. Well, the problem with that is that you're supposed to maintain that to a perfection. And if you read the requirements, it's like all miscellaneous items, including, miscellaneous items, everything. So some large equipment, expensive equipment, including miscellaneous. What's miscellaneous? Well, it's miscellaneous. So here comes the auditor. They routinely go through and say, okay, let's check this off, check that chair, check the table, all that stuff. It's like, wait a minute, this is not on here. And they mark it all down. Eventually they do their inventory and you have a whole list of stuff that you bought last year, the year before. You just didn't put it on there at various price levels. Okay, here's your fine, here's your penalties. And basically you're breaking the code. And to me, that's ridiculous. That's just penalizing individuals that maybe have a high capital intensive business over others. And then to go show you the politicization of what happens is, any car wash business owners here? No? Good. Somehow, I look forward to finding out how this happened, but of all the different business classes, there's like 12 different property tax codes. One of them is car washes, and their factor that they apply to their property is 0.000001. So how all the businesses in Virginia, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, did a car wash company get a specific line item in our code just for them? That's the reality of it. The burdens and the artist situation, the environment is bad. The report card, the financial report card shows that. And we need someone who understands the business, understands the challenge of starting a business. I've testified in front of Congress on the challenges for veterans after they get out of active service, start their own business. And I've lived it. I started mine in my spare bedroom, and I've grown that. And so we need people who understand the challenges, understand the numbers, and willing to reach out across the aisle. One thing I've already done, I've worked with Lee Henderson and looked at the opportunities and how collaboration and working in efficiencies. She has multiple satellite offices, and I look forward to ensuring that our office is run efficiently, that we're lowering the absolutely efficient, lowest cost possible to ensure that we're delivering the services necessary for our community. Same thing a business does, because in a business, your accountability is your profitability. Because if you're not responsible and tight with the money, there's no money just to throw away. You have to earn it. You have to work for it. Government can get lazy. Government get complacent. And it's been 24 years. We've had the same leadership in that office. The people in the office, I've already talked to several of them, wonderful folks, working hard, doing what they have to. But when the leadership is just, I'll be honest, asleep at the wheel and not serving the taxpayers, we got problems, folks. And our report card, a 49th state in the country, is indicative of that. So working with our offices, I'll show another one as well, the website. I've heard it too many times in our debates and forums where people ask questions, it's like, go to my website. Well, I've gone to his website. Website goes down, it's a kind of what we call a flat website, not very interactive and helpful. And it points to other departments in the city of Virginia Beach. So you go over to the planning, that points back to the Commission of Revenue. You go to the Commission of Revenue, goes back to another office. So it's just like fingers pointing against each other. Folks, that's not the way. And again, it goes to show you the customer service. So accountability, customer service, transparency are three pillars of my campaign, my platform. I'm going to work for the taxpayers. I love Virginia Beach. This is where I decided I've traveled the world, and this is the best place to live, best place to raise a family, best, and it should be, and it will be. I have empowered with your vote, the best place to start a business and run it. And I'm blessed to be here tonight. And thank you so much for all your support. We're going to win this. It's crucial. And thank you so much. God bless.
Hey, Ben Loyola, folks, running for the Commissioner of Revenue. Phil Kellum emailed me earlier today. He's not going to be able to make it. So we'll go on to the Treasurer's office, and we have candidate Laura Haber. Okay, Laura, let me get to my phone and I will reset it for 10 minutes.
Thank you, Diana. Good evening, everyone. How are we doing? Good. Thanks for coming out. I wanted to thank Diana. She and I have sat on some really great committees over the years, with bipartisan discussions and really just doing the good work of, our city government. The tourism task force was really interesting. But I also want to thank you for coming to this small, locally owned and operated restaurant. It is my cousin's restaurant. If you remember Mary's, do anyone remember Mary's restaurant on 17th Street? Well, this is where this family got their start. And our family's restaurant's around the corner on 19th Street at Crocs. So we would just really humbly thank you for being here tonight and supporting every month. So my name's Laura Woodhuber. There's Laura, L-A-R-A. I'm L-A-U-R-A. Holidays are always fun, fun holiday gifts. But I'm Laura Woodhuber, and I'm running to be your city treasurer. And Diana, I have answered your question. So would you like me to answer your questions first or just tell people?
You can answer the questions up there.
Okay, sure. So really, as I stand before you this evening, this is really not about me, it's about you. So this is not about me, it's about you, it's our community. And that's what I've been doing for 25 years in this city. Worked on numerous city appointed committees, governor appointed committees and commissions. And so this is a call to service for me. And it was certainly during the height of the pandemic when I realized that we didn't have to sit around and complain about government. We could actually step up and do something about it, especially when we saw something that we needed to call out was wrong. And then when we see something right, call that out too. So your question was, okay, the question that was presented to us this evening was, what latitude does the city treasurer have in the collection of taxes? And so as far as I'm familiar, the code gives the treasurer the ability to utilize discretion on most collection matters. So, and I'm referencing Virginia Code 58.1-3910 and 58.1-3123. And so I want to give you an example of what that means, right? Because what does all that mean? So back in August 23rd, 2017, Eric Hartley, a reporter from the Virginia Pilot, did an investigative piece on how tax liens were, the only people getting rich were the lawyers, right? And the cities, cost the city millions. So it was, remember John Atkinson, former John Atkinson, everybody? Yeah. Actually, he's a family friend too. My dad and him grew up together since they were teenagers. So anyway, he said in about 2009, he stopped tax auctions in the depths of the recession. Remember that recession? If you're in the housing market, you definitely remember. So he stopped those in the recession. We're in a pandemic, which is a little bit of a recession. I would think you would agree with, especially some of these small locally owned and operated businesses and restaurants, how they've been hit. So that's what I'm doing. I want to put a moratorium on these tax auctions, very much like our former treasurer Atkinson did. And he went on to say that it saves taxpayers money, that he thought we were being more responsible when we give them, businesses, the time to solve their own problems. I agree with that. And if people don't pay, he said, the interest adds up and the money owed to the city becomes a lien on the property, meaning it can be collected if the land is ever sold. And so my approach to this is really, it's a judgment. What kind of judgment are you going to deal with your community? Keep them whole, keep them, propped up together. So that's question number one. I hope I answered that. And number two was, what is the one issue affecting the job of treasurer you would want to address, and how would you address it? Well, customer service. That's what I've been doing my whole life. I just think we need to treat taxpayers as customers. I would cross-train the staff in the treasurer's office to better meet workloads and significantly increase customer service, and develop comprehensive employee training. Policy guides, that's something you live by when you're in an industry. And I would establish a chain of command, right? We know what that, who's the manager, who's handling this project, certainly and establish a flow chart to provide more uniform service and taxpayer assistance. So those were my responses to your questions. So I guess in closing, I wanted to also say that I would order an independent audit. I would like to know what this office has been doing for the past 43 years, the past 20 years, the past 2 years during the pandemic, and really give us a roadmap and get a baseline to start to establish how we could move forward, and certainly gain insight into better customer service and update technology to make it easier for businesses to deal with. I know it's been quite a struggle. And let's see, well, I know how to inspire people. I've done this one with hundreds of people, dozens of projects throughout my career. I hope I can earn your vote by November 2nd. My name is Laura Wood-Hubbard. You can learn more about me at visit laurawoodhubbard.com. And again, thank you, Diana. Thank you all for being here and being attentive. And I'll be right over here if you have questions following.
Well, you got 4 minutes left. You want to take a question from the audience?
I'll be happy to.
Okay, has anybody got a question? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Your card right here.
Yes.
Say, I want you to know how I will manage the billing, collection, and investment of the money. And I've always been curious, does the treasurer really have any say-so on how the money's spent?
No. No, but the job is to bill, collect, deposit. It's also investing, and we don't know how our money's being invested right now. So I would like to really bring more transparency to that process too. So,
I would like to know that too.
Yeah.
The city is sending out a referendum to ask us for $500 million to manage stormwater.
Right.
Already collecting $15 a month from me for that.
Right. You know what? I hear this. I knock doors every day. I talk with people all day long, and I hear the same thing. And that is not the lane for me.
Does the city treasurer
No, sir.
communicate this information to us? Where the
I-
money's going and how it's being spent?
Well, if I'm elected, I will definitely tell you what's going on. In fact, I was endorsed by the Sierra Club. I was also endorsed by the Police Benevolent Association to put those two together, that shows you the broad span of support I'm gathering throughout our community. And so I understand issues with flooding and have been on the Green Committee for 15 years. It was something I started here in the city of Virginia Beach. So I would definitely be an advocate in finding and asking questions and trying to help all of us understand more.
Okay.
I hope I answered that question.
Carol had her hand up first.
Yeah.
Rather than putting a moratorium on all small businesses for tax revenue, that each business that would have money to come in, there are many small businesses that have plenty of money coming in.
Okay, she wants to know if you would vet the small business before you put that moratorium on
Oh,
collecting
of course.
taxes.
You have to have plenty of money coming in. And
Sure.
there are many businesses right now that can't find workers.
I get it. We can't find workers.
And the reason that I say that is
Mhm.
simply because if you start giving one person the idea that they don't have to pay taxes for a year and they
Oh.
can invest their money in the bank and
Right.
gain money.
Yeah,
then
Okay,
that's a great point. No, I'm saying, I just want to put a moratorium to find out where we are and who's hurting. It's very much like John Atkinson did in 2009 during that recession, but it's a
Okay.
level playing field.
the
Yes.
gentleman in the back.
I'm a small business owner, and I go to a lot of these fundraising events for bipartisan. How am I supposed to trust a city treasurer who knowingly hires a company to levy these taxes, collect them, and also put people out there establishing business, knowing that they're going to receive a kickback off of their payment towards the campaign fund? How am I supposed to trust that they do their job moving forward for people like those who are in this room, who may not be rich people, who may be small business owners, or in a different tax bracket that other people do not see themselves in? How am I supposed to trust that person moving forward?
Get all that?
That's a great question. Look, Virginia has the worst laws on conflict of interest with elected officials in office taking campaign contributions, if that's what you're referencing. So that is at a General Assembly. I hope at a General Assembly level, I hope that gets fixed. It's in all of our best interest. And it doesn't surely look like a very good, ethically proper thing to do. So that's all I can say, yes.
Okay, last question, because her time is be up.
Okay.
Just a question.
Yes, sir.
If you're elected treasurer, what can you do better than the past treasurer? What do you think that you can excel at or do better than anybody that served in that office prior to you?
Sure. Well, that's changed since 1977 when, so I think the independent audit would give all of us in this office an understanding of how we could do it better. So if you don't know what you don't know, I'd like to know. I mean, that's how I approach my business and every project I get into, to really establish a baseline and understand what we're doing. So the audit would be number one. And I know customer service can be improved. I know technology can be improved. So I hope you'll
Okay, her
consider
time
me.
is expired,
Thank
so.
Thank you. You all were wonderful. Thank you, Diane.
Oh, thank you, Laura. Okay. So, I mean, if she hangs around, you can always ask her a question later, okay? So now I'd like to call up our current city treasurer, Lee Henderson. I will start the clock.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming out tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about my story. I think most of you have heard my story, so I'll go through that very quickly. I got elected in November of 2019, but I became treasurer in January of 2019 after the former treasurer very abruptly retired. And that kind of threw me into a whirlwind of figuring out what I wanted to do moving forward and if I wanted to be involved in politics. And let me just say that that has been quite the interesting journey along the way. I've learned a whole bunch about myself. I've learned a whole bunch about the good things of politics, and I've learned a whole bunch of the nastiness of politics. I've decided to run a positive campaign, and I really take pride in that. I'm really proud of the accomplishments that I've made in the office. A little bit about my work history. I started in the city treasurer's office under John Atkinson in 2000 after I graduated from college with a degree in accounting and a degree in finance. And throughout the years, I worked on all of the projects within the office, and I learned at pretty much every aspect of the office. I can do a little bit of cashiering. I know my debits and credits. I know my investment portfolio. I know details about the delinquent collections in the office. So I think that really prepared me to be the treasurer and serve. So after I became the treasurer, the city has really gone through some very tumultuous times. And you know, the May 31st tragedy happened, and that had a great impact on our community, but it also had a great impact on the employees in the city treasurer's office, but all of the cities. It really impacted our processes within the city as far as the protection of our staff. So we had to make some changes to how we operated in response to that situation. And then we rolled into a pandemic, which is difficult for our office as the tax collectors, but difficult for many individuals and many businesses. So to help people through these situations, and actually before the pandemic started, we moved one office and opened up a new office to add accessibility to our citizens. And then the pandemic rolled in, and we really had to work very hard with city council and other departments to figure out how we were going to help our citizens. One of the things that I did in March of 2000 was I sent a letter to city council about a very unique payment plan. Oh, sorry, it's across the hall. A very unique payment plan that I established that allowed for a business that owed taxes to sign a contract with the city treasurer's office that allowed them to not make a single solitary payment during the state of emergency declared by the governor. And during that time, they also didn't incur any penalties associated with that tax. And many, many businesses, a lot of restaurants, a lot of small businesses took advantage of that payment plan. So to answer part of the question about the discretion that the city treasurer has in the collections, there is some discretion in that. However, it is the job of the city treasurer's office to collect. So, you know, in reference to some of the things that my opponent had talked about with the moratorium on collections, I have not exactly done that. We have worked with our citizens to collect on the people that are able to pay and work out a communication plan with the ones who are not able to pay at this time. There's two different aspects of collections, and I think there's some confusion among them. There is a specific collection type for businesses, and there's a completely different collection type for real estate, the way it operates in my office right now. So the tax auctions don't necessarily have anything to do with small businesses and their operations. They are on the real estate parcels. And the payment plans that I referenced in that letter to City Council are very specific to small businesses. The goal of that payment plan was to keep businesses open. They could use that tax liability that they owe to the city to roll back into their operations to keep them open. Because quite frankly, if a business closes, we're not able to collect upon those taxes. So we are there to do a job to collect the taxes, but also try to help businesses and individuals be successful. We're not in the business of throwing people out of their homes. We're not in the business of putting an additional financial burden on citizens and businesses during a very trying time. So I know there's been discussion about tax auctions specifically, and I'd like to talk about just 2 tax auctions that I've done during my time. Now, the prior treasurer earlier on had a philosophy similar to mine, and that was amended. John Atkinson believed that the 9.6 and 8.4% interest rate that the city charges was a great investment for the city of Virginia Beach. That's why he didn't collect upon those taxes, because that interest rate kept racking up. Those delinquent taxes kept racking up. Well, I don't really think that does a service to the citizens of Virginia Beach. We have a tax burden. If you live in Virginia Beach, you're obligated to pay those taxes, and I'm going to work with you to do that. But having no action upon that for years and years and years is not good for you as a citizen in a business. So there are situations in which citizens are not able to pay. Honestly, they're on a fixed income, they're elderly, they're just living on Social Security, they have had very terrible health conditions that put them in that situation. That's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the collections that we're doing now. The collections that we're doing now are on if I'm talking about businesses, are businesses that were not impacted by the pandemic. And let me give you one example. We had a business in an industry, in a service industry, not a restaurant, not a hotel, that was extremely successful during the pandemic. And we know which types of businesses seem to be more successful during the pandemic when people were at home. And they just refused to pay their taxes. So they owed like $77,000, for which we were able to collect. To give an example, on the real estate side, I had a situation with a taxpayer that owned 3 parcels, owned 5 commercial properties, and owned a real estate in North Carolina. Their combined delinquency was $380,000. Their delinquency started in 2009. So we were able to collect that through these processes that I've implemented. And if I wasn't doing those types of collections, I wouldn't be doing my job. So when we talk about service to the citizens, we're talking about service to all of the citizens, those that pay their taxes and those that don't. Those that don't we need to collect upon. Those that can't, we need to open up those lines of communication, work with them, figure out how we can help them through that process. Those that don't, we need to attack. We need to not attack, but we need to address those issues. Because when we serve all citizens, why should the citizens who are paying their taxes take on the burdens continuously of those who refuse to pay their taxes? So we really are looking out for the interests of the citizens when we do those types of collections with compassion. I talked about that in my 2019 campaign, that it was the job to collect as an elected treasurer, but we do that with compassion. We want to have that dialogue with each and every citizen. Now, if we're talking about you call my office and you talk with someone and you do not like the service or the answer that you get, please ask for me. I'm in the office all the time. My husband can attest to that. I work like a maniac. So call me, come see me, come ask me questions. Quite honestly, I could be able to help you, or I may tell you something that you don't want to hear, because that's what's fair and equitable to all of our citizens. And that's what we've tried to implement. The prior treasurer did things a little differently. We have created some standards and operating procedures in our office so that we are fair to all citizens, that we're collecting from citizens that don't have any money and citizens that do have money in a fair and honest way. So I will turn it over for just a minute or two of if there's any questions. Then
Anybody got a question?
Yes.
Okay.
How is it that you collect from people that don't have any money in a fair and honest way?
How do you collect money from people who don't have money in a fair and honest way?
So we work out payment plans with those. We have open lines of dialogue on that. We try to make arrangements where if it's even $5 a week, $50 a week, the goal is to have them successful to pay off the liability that they owe to the city and do their part, but we can assist them in that process.
Are there exemptions for those people?
It depends. The exemptions process comes completely out of the Commissioner of the Revenue's office. So we try to educate those people. If they're perhaps may qualify for that, we can refer them to the Commissioner's office or other programs that maybe the Public Utilities may administer or the Department of Human Services may administer to assist them with those services.
Okay, that's it. You only have 8 seconds left. Okay, is Glenn still on the line?
Yes.
Okay, so is anybody here from the sheriff's office? Okay, nobody here from the sheriff's office? Okay,
He will be here Saturday morning with the military breakfast at 9 o'clock.
okay, so the sheriffs will be here on Saturday morning at your meeting. Great, okay. Okay, so Glenn, are you there? I don't think he's there.
Yeah, he asked him to turn his video and
Glenn, you gotta turn your video and your sound on.
on.
Glenn Davis is in the 84th district. There you go, Glenn. Okay, I'm gonna start the timer. You got 10 minutes. Can you speak, Glenn?
Oh, I
Hello?
appreciate. Was that Diana?
Closer to your microphone, Glenn.
Glenn, he's not moving his mouth. Glenn, can you talk? Well, we can always come back to you, Glenn, if you're having technical difficulties.
That may be us too.
Okay,
That may be us too. The connection here sometimes is like that.
Glenn, we can't hear you.
He's frozen.
You're frozen. Okay, we'll work on that. Meanwhile, we call up Tim Anderson, who is running for the 83rd district.
Good evening. Not sure who loves me, hates me, but if you don't like me, it's all Robert Dean's fault, and that's a true story. The other day, it felt like this homeless guy came over to my gun shop and he dropped off a card and said, "Hey, will you come speak at the Libertarian breakfast?" And I did my very first political speech right here on this stage, and it was all Robert's fault. So if you don't like me, that's him.
How many people like?
So a little bit about me, if you don't know me, my name's Tim Anderson. I'm an attorney here in Virginia Beach. I have a practice that has kind of developed into a political litigation practice. We're getting involved with a lot of things in a lot of ways. Right now, we're inundated with the vaccine mandate and helping people navigate how to try to get religious and medical exemptions. And so that's what we are. We flow with the political moment. There was many of you met me in the beginning during the Second Amendment sanctuary movement, where we were working with the cities to try to create buffers from the state who at that time was trying to make you criminals for owning common carry pistols. So from there, the COVID regulations hit and businesses got shut down. We helped businesses navigate, and all the while every day was making videos, keeping you informed of what was going on. So that's a little bit about me, and probably most of you know that, just in case you didn't. So in July of last year, a big accident happened down in Portsmouth. Statute fell on this person, got very hurt, and the chief of police was blamed for the activities. And at this time, the politicians were calling the police bad. Well, they're still calling the police bad in a lot of ways, but they were calling the police bad and criminals good. And I got involved in that, ended up getting sued for $20 million by the speaker, the Senate leader of the Virginia Senate for defamation. Worked my way through that, and now that has catapulted me into running for office, and I'm the Republican nominee for the 83rd House of Representatives. So ultimately, when the Democrats lose their majority, they can thank Louise Lucas for that one. All right, so why am I running? A couple things in a nutshell. Here's the deal. We need balance. Absolutely, it's super clear we need balance. The Democrats had some very good ideas that were good in their inception, but became pretty bad in their implication. And I'll give you just two examples. I truly believe that there's way too many people in jail. We overpopulate our society. We have way too many people in jail. So Democrats had a great idea. Hey, if you're a nonviolent felon, we're going to let you get out of prison sooner, get you back home, get you back to work. I'm all for that. I've been advocating that as a criminal defense lawyer for a long time. So if you go and you steal a car and it's your first offense, we're going to give you a 40% sentencing credit. You get to come home. Great. I'm all for that. What they did, though, is they extended that sentencing credit all the way to people who include child pornographers. People who have child pornography get the same sentencing credit that somebody who might steal a car. And that just goes way too far. And when you look at how that happened, it's because the Republicans have no say in government right now. They are completely marginalized. Democrats don't want to hear from them. No say whatsoever. So what was happening is the moderate side of the Democrat Party was fighting with the progressive side of the party, and the progressive side wanted everybody except first-degree murderers to get the 40% sentencing credit. So they settle and they make these little deals, and it ends up being that child pornographers get to have the same sentencing credit as somebody who steals a car. Next year, when this law becomes effective, people are going to be released out of prison that are child pornographers, serving sentences earlier than they should. Second thing they did, I don't like the idea of criminalizing children. If you bring a beer to a football game, high school football game, I don't think the police should get involved. I don't think you should go to jail for that. I think that's a school issue. And what was happening is that kids were getting involved with criminal justice, and I didn't like that either. Democrats proposed a bill on that. Said, hey, we're going to make it to where if it's a misdemeanor, you're not going to get lit up. However, they extended it to include sexual assaults, misdemeanor sexual assaults. Now, if you're on a school bus and you're a boy and you're sitting next to a girl and you touch a girl in her privates and grope her, that's misdemeanor sexual assault. Those crimes no longer have to be reported to the police. And it's like, what are we doing, right? Like, we can talk about these things normally and say, hey, yeah, I don't want the kid with the beer getting lit up by the police, but the kid that gropes the girl on the school bus should. And they passed that through, and this was all this is how it happened. They passed a bill through the General Assembly. The General Assembly voted on it. The House of Delegates passed it, and the Senate passed it, that said the police can't pull you over at night without your headlights on, because doing so is racist. It had to get fixed by the governor, because we're down here screaming about it on social media that you can't tell the police they can't pull over a car at night without their headlights on. It has nothing to do with race. It has total to do with safety. Craziness. And when the delegate Hope from Richmond was asked about that, he said, I didn't even know that was in the bill. It's like, that's your bill. How did you not even know it was in there? So it's super clear. Those are just 3 examples. I could, if I had more time, in fact, I might take some of Ben's time. He only used 6 minutes. I'm going to take 2 or 3 minutes from Ben's time to tell you more. But the truth is this, you need balance. They expanded the Court of Appeals by 8 judges. They appointed 8 judges to the Court of Appeals with not one input from the Republicans. They got $4.3 billion from the federal government for COVID relief, took no input from the Republicans on how that money would be spent. That's how we're being governed. One party rule, and it's not right. It wouldn't be right if the Republicans were doing it, and it's not right that the Democrats are doing it. So we need balance. So that's why I'm in the race. 83rd House of Delegates is the biggest race in Virginia. Money is pouring in from all over. My opponent last time got $350,000 from Michael Bloomberg. His PAC now is probably going to spend $150,000 this year. A millionaire out in Charlottesville has already dumped $150,000 in, probably more. Nancy Guy is spending $100,000 a week on TV. It's disgusting. I'm being attacked because I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I don't know if you've seen the ads. I'm not a bad criminal defense lawyer. I'm just a criminal defense lawyer. That's the ads, because I represent people that do bad things. And I'll tell you this, I represent people that do really bad things. And that's my job, okay? That's what I do for a living. They're not talking about that. They're only talking about a couple of the people that I represented up in the January 6th incident, because it's all about the January 6th incident to the Democrats. It's complete and utter nonsense. So that's where I am. That's the, we're getting attacked. I'm getting attacked for being a lawyer. I'm getting attacked because I wanted to have schools opened up last year when the CDC said kids should open up. You go and you give a speech at the city school board for 7 minutes, and then they take out one sentence, and then they put that on TV, and that's that's how I'm dangerous. So I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to take the liberty to try. I just want to show you this. I don't know if I can put this on the screen. I see. Can we see it? Oh no. Oh, it's here. All right. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
All right. So that's me with my ducks. So I have these pet ducks. I was going to a event one night. I had to get a pole pounder for the big signs we have, and I ended up buying 2 ducks, and I have these 2 ducks, and they're my little pets now. They're my buddies. So when you see Tim Anderson is dangerous, what Tim Anderson does when he goes home after he plays with his kids, he plays with his ducks. So I'm not exactly sure how dangerous I am to society. I'm probably not supposed to have these ducks, but whatever. It's just how that is. But I hope to have your support. What I need from all of you is this, and I make no jokes about this. What I need from you is I need you to work for me on the polls on November 2nd. I have 3-hour shifts. We have 20 precincts, and we have 13 hours to cover. So that's 360 hours of time that I need covered. If you support Ben, if you support Lee, if you support the other candidates that are in here, the sheriff, whoever that is, you can still work in my district and support them by handing out literature at those events. So please see my assistant Chad. He's right here. Get him your information and get signed up to hand out literature 3-hour blocks. And I would love to have your support on November 2nd. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we have a question for you.
Is there a 20-second?
Yeah,
Yes, Virginia wants to know, can you talk on a TV ad that says that you defended someone from January the 6th?
Yeah, so I've represented 2 people from January 6th. One guy got charged with unlawful picketing, most minor crime you can have. Him and his wife were up there, and I represented another guy on an extradition hearing, meaning he was arrested in Virginia and he was being shipped out. So yeah, but I'll tell you this, I've represented a lot of really bad people worse than that. So, I mean, you know, that's my job though. And if you ever get in trouble, if you ever get a DUI, you ever get in sideways with the law, you're going to want to have a defense lawyer. Not everybody who gets charged with crimes is guilty. The ones who are still have to be treated fairly. And that's what I do for a living. And I make no apologies for it.
thank you. All right, can we get Glenn back on?
Not on.
No, Glenn, if you call me, maybe I can put my speaker, my mic up to my phone and we can hear you. Can you try that?
Because he's not on here.
He's not on at all.
We'll
No.
wait for him to log back on.
He came on and it was frozen.
Yeah. The second last time?
He came on.
It's a hotel somewhere.
It could be us.
Hey, we don't have you on there, but I thought maybe I could hold my microphone up to the phone and you can talk that way. It froze again. I guess there must be something wrong.
Come
with
try
the-
one more time. One more time.
You wanna-
Just one
Roger
more.
wants you to try one more time to log in. And then if not, we'll just put the microphone over to the phone. Okay.
So in this interlude, I like to ask Mrs. Howard, if I can ask Tim Anderson, will you be willing to represent 7 members of the school board on their pornography charges?
If I could talk about that, I'd be happy to give you more details about that.
Is he on yet?
Outrageous.
Nope.
No.
I'll second motion.
Yeah, look good.
Hold on.
All in favor?
Now that would be what happened to that girl was outrageous. I mean, it's more like
Avoid the rush.
Is he there yet? No.
No.
Avoid the rush.
Nice call.
Oh, it's connecting?
I don't see
Okay.
him.
There we go.
No, I don't see him.
No?
You got 2 of them up there. He's got to be there somewhere. No, it's my phone.
It says it's connecting.
It's not there. Could be our connection too.
I don't think so. Diane, is he zooming on his phone or laptop?
Okay.
See, it's not showing up here.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
There he is. There we go.
Do you see Glenn?
In a minute. It's coming.
He'll turn his video, as soon as he turns his video on, it'll show up.
Okay. They said you need to turn your video on.
Diana?
I hear you.
Diana?
Video.
Okay, so here's the problem. So I switched devices. I've got a Chromebook that won't log in. I have a Google phone or a Samsung phone that I've been logging in with video that it keeps freezing up. And then I've got a 14-inch video editing laptop that I'm on right now that does not have a video, that does not have a camera. So I've got 3 devices and none of them give me both of the audio and video. But at least this one, I think you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. So we'll
Okay.
start the timer. I don't know if you have a picture of him or something like that. You can put a picture up on the screen, but
No, it takes too much time to find.
okay, there'll be too much time, they said, to find one. But I'll just start the timer and you can start talking, okay?
Sounds good.
All right,
look,
go.
I appreciate everyone giving me this opportunity. I wish I could be there with you. I'm in the sunny but socialist state of California. I had to fly out here for 36 hours for a technology conference. I guess since we're looking at moving forward with autonomous vehicles, I better know what I'm talking about. So I'm out here for the next 36 hours doing some stuff on that. But I appreciate the opportunity to at least join you virtually and audibly during this time. Obviously, I'm running for re-election. I've had an honor to serve the community that I grew up in for 5 years on city council, then the last 8 years in the House of Delegates. It's been a tough last couple of years. I don't have to tell you the attacks on their Second Amendment that we've had come down the pike. I've shared with you, I've been sitting on the front lines of that attack when I sit on the firearms subcommittee, where there's 3 Republicans and 9 Democrats. Honestly, I would say fighting back their attacks on the Second Amendment, but honestly, having to explain to them, you know, what a firearm is and what a magazine is and what a base plate to a magazine is and why they're making law-abiding citizens, you know, felons because they have a base plate that women want to change colors on, but that base plate pops off and now they have a magazine that becomes illegal when they were trying to pass that law back in 2020 or trying to explain what a muzzle brake is. You know, they think anything that screws onto the end of a barrel is dangerous. And truth be told, some of those things that screw onto the end of the barrel does nothing more than help protect our hearing a little bit or get rid of some of the recoil. And as we all know, you know, the less recoil on a firearm, the less likely it might cause an accident for a beginner. So it's been kind of interesting. This last year, though, was something I never thought I'd see. I never thought I'd ever have a time where people refer to my comments that I make as racist. I had to deal with that this last year, fighting back the legislation that was coming through that was addressing what they wanted to call equity. But when you start talking about emission standards into our governor schools, and you say that there's not a proper ratio of African Americans and Latino community members in our governor schools compared to the Asian community. And instead of actually raising up communities, which is what all of us believe in, we believe in that the way you help a community is you raise up the community. Instead of doing that, they wanted to dumb down the emission standards. I got up and spoke against it. They called it racist comments. I told them, I don't care what the heck you call it. I'm right, and we're not going to go and hurt communities. I think I've been extremely passionate, not only during the General Assembly, but afterwards, and had the opportunity to join many of you yesterday at the rally had outside the school board. I will tell you that resolution that you put together was a resolution that there is no reason for anyone not to get behind. Any language that could be remotely interpreted as objectionable, y'all had already taken out. I'm not quite sure where 7 of those school board members thought that anything was remotely objectionable. I've got an opponent that's the vice chair of the school board that literally said, from my understanding, and I haven't watched all her comments yet, I had to get ready for an early morning flight, but I understand that she said that that it would shut down conversation if we told people what they couldn't talk about. And you know, look, there should never be a conversation of your skin color is one color, so you're an oppressor, and your skin color is a different color, so you're a victim. That's if it shuts down that type of conversation, thank God. But you know, it does not stop anyone from having a conversation about the history, good and bad, of our nation. So for those of you that were there yesterday that spoke out, thank you very much. We're going to win this battle. You know, this is not just a Virginia Beach battle. It is not just Hampton Roads battle. It's not even just a Virginia battle. It's a battle that's occurring all around the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I'm looking at going back up into the General Assembly to continue fighting that fight. And if we get to, pass down some legislation that actually puts some sanity down in our school boards, I'm happy to do it. I never thought I'd see the day where that had to be done. But this is about making sure that we protect the education of our students and going forward to make sure that we provide the same opportunity that we were all given. You gave me 3 questions I think you wanted an answer to. The first one is, do I support having the standard deductions brought up to the federal levels? Of course I do. I think it's crazy that the federal government has different levels, excuse me, of standard deductions that we don't have at the state level. And it definitely causes some issues for some accountants when you start filing one way federally and a different way at the state level. So I think we need to bring those into arrangement, and I think that's the only fair thing to do. The second thing that was asked of me was what's my position on school choice, and I've been a leader on school choice I think since the day I was born. But I know at least since I've been elected office, I've always believed that every child deserves the chance at a first-class education, regardless of zip code. And every year I've been in office, I've put together a school choice legislation and parental choice legislation. This last year, I had the voucher bill that basically said that if you have a child with an IEP, or if it was a military family, that you could actually get you could have that savings account to take and put your child wherever you deemed appropriate if they were not able to be in school in person. It started out, I wanted it to be everyone, but that got a little difficult even for my own party. So then I narrowed it down to just those with IEPs. Interestingly enough, I believe the Teachers Association actually backed my bill, but the Democrats still said no. I can't figure that one out to save my life, but it is what it is. But with a governor like Glenn Youngkin, who's talking about growing charter schools, I think we will finally have a chance to have school choice around the Commonwealth. We all believe that competition is the rising tide that lifts all boats. It has always been that case. Why would it be any different in education? And I've seen it happen when I started Green Run Collegiate. I've mentioned the story a couple of times. A school that's 77% minority students, 48% free and reduced lunches, and 2 years ago had the average SOL, the highest average SOL test score of any school in the state of Virginia Beach, including the academies. It's not because of the governing board. It's because of a great head of school. It's because of great teachers, allowing teachers to do what they know they need to do in the classroom to best reach their students. We have mentors for every student. We have some wraparound services because some of our students have different needs than maybe other students that live in other parts of the city. And it's an IB program just as difficult as any other IB program like Princess Anne has. And last year we had 100% graduation rate. So I'm very proud of what we can do given the opportunity with school choice. So I think those are the questions that y'all wanted answered. And as I look forward to this next General Assembly session, people say, Glenn, what is that you're looking forward to doing? And mostly, I'm looking forward to getting school choice off the ground in the Commonwealth. I've done a lot of travel. I've been to a lot of schools around the Commonwealth of Virginia and elsewhere, including Harlem, New York, where I've seen school choice be so successful. And I've seen students in Virginia who I knew if they just had the same opportunities and resources that others have, that they could reach their full potential as well. But unfortunately, we don't allow for that in Virginia. So that's where I want to put a lot of my efforts with the Republican governor who believes the same. So with that, I think I'm narrowing in on my time, but happy to answer questions if you're doing Q&A. But most importantly, thank you for having me.
Okay, yeah, we got 2 minutes left there. Anybody have a question for Glenn? Okay, Wendell?
Regulated under the Virginia Beach school system, because there are some charter schools in areas that they are charter schools, but they still under that district education school. So would that be independent of the Virginia Beach?
She wants to know if charter systems would still be regulated under the Virginia Beach school system or separate from Virginia Beach school system.
So there's a couple ways to do it. Right now in the Commonwealth of Virginia, you are chartered by the local school board, but that does not mean that they get control over you. We had this debate when we started Green Run Collegiate, that Green Run Collegiate, a charter school, is a public charter school that has a charter. And we are allowed to hire the teachers we want to hire. We're allowed to teach the way we believe in teaching and take the field trips we want to do and set up education as long as we maintain the quality of standards that are required by the government. But the contract, the charter is given to us by the school system, and it can be pulled by the school system. Thankfully, it used to be able to be pulled without cause. Now it has to be pulled with cause. Going forward, though, I put a bill in a few years ago that would allow you to appeal to the Virginia Board of Education for if you were starting a charter school and were denied at the local school board level. The local school boards seem to hate the concept of competition in charter schools. So I think we need to have an appeal process to a Board of Education, albeit a better Board of Education than the one we have today.
Okay, well, that's it for your time. So we can take questions for any of the candidates. If anybody wants to ask questions for any of the candidates, because there was one other person that was going to try and make it here by 8 o'clock. So while we're waiting to see if she makes it or not, does anybody have a question for any of the candidates, and we can have them come up and answer it? Okay, what is your question? You want to ask Tim about the school choice?
No.
What was your subject matter when you addressed the school board?
No.
No, Glenn spoke at the, oh, you spoke at the rally? Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's for both of you. I mean, if they have questions for anybody, she had a question for you, because his time is up as well.
My subject was,
Want to use the mic?
Hello, Glenn Davis.
Hey, Tim.
My subject was last year in July. Well, you want me to stand?
Right there. Yes, sir. Perfect.
Was in July of last year advocating to have kids return to in-person learning in the classrooms. Parent choice, not mandatory parent choice, letting parents make a decision to have virtual and in-person. And we were advocating on behalf of school member Christy Craig in Chesapeake out there. So that was what my thing was. And what I was talking about, what I said in that 7-minute speech was, children die, that's unfortunate. And that's what she's running in the commercials. But what I was referring to in that speech was a statistic of how many children die in outdoor playground equipment. And I said, you can't have a zero risk society. You have to let parents make decisions of how to send their kids to school. Kids have very low risk of death from COVID, and parents can make those decisions. So that's why I was in Chesapeake in July of 2020 advocating on behalf of Christy New Craig when they were trying to recall her for trying to get the kids back to school.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Yes.
Robert?
Same subject on the so-called pornography that's going on in the Virginia Beach school systems.
Okay, you guys. Pornography.
What are you going to do about it at state level?
So Glenn Davis knows this bill as good as I do. But in 2016, General Assembly passed a bill. The House and the Senate passed pretty much almost a unanimous bipartisan bill that said, if there is offensive, sexually explicit material in the schools, that parents must be notified about it. And Democrats and Republicans both passed it, and it went to Governor McAuliffe, and he vetoed it. And as a result of that, now parents have to now learn about things from their kids, from other people. And there's 2 books that were in Virginia Beach's public libraries. One was called Gender Queer, and Lawn Boy. Lawn Boy has some text in it that absolutely discusses pedophilia, and Gender Queer has illustrations of children performing oral sex on each other and having homosexual sex with each other. Illustrations. And I have those on my phone. Anybody can come see those if they want them. Parents freaked out about it. School board members, got them pulled. But that shouldn't have happened that way. it should have happened that the schools announced to the parents that these materials are being introduced to there, and if you have an objection, let us know. And so that is a big problem with our current school system, is there are other books like that parents don't know about because they're not going to their school libraries and pulling every book off the shelf and looking at it. But when these books come in, if there is explicit sexual material or material that's inappropriate, and listen, this isn't a homosexual thing. You know, if there's a girl filleting a boy illustrated in a book, I would be just as offended because I don't want my 14-year-old seeing that, right? So when that book came in, parents should have known about it and had the right to object, not find out it was there years after, when parents in Texas started fussing about it. So that's where we are. That law needs to be passed again and signed by a Republican Governor Youngkin into law.
Yeah.
Glenn, do you have anything to say about the pornography books in the schools?
I mean, look, Tim's 100% right. I'm behind it 110% that we need, there should this is not the way parents should find out that stuff is in there. It should not be in there. It is solely on the governor's head for this stuff coming out and him vetoing it. And it needs to be something that Tim's right, that it gets passed again this year and that Governor Youngkin signs. And there should be a process going forward where every book is reviewed that goes into our public libraries, especially our school libraries. And if something is objectionable, the parents should have a chance to weigh in. Unlike Governor McAuliffe, who decides that parents should not have a say at all, we believe a lot differently, that parents should have the ultimate say in the education of their children.
Okay, Bill, do you have a question?
Yeah, on the same subject, the book was approved by someone to go into the library. Why don't you tell us what you think about that?
Well, look, there's two books that they've discovered. One is a book of words, and you have to get pretty deep into it to see the child talking about him being molested and enjoying it, and encouraging his friends to maybe participate in similar behavior. You have to get into that. The other book is absolutely, it's like a cartoon book, and it's very easy to find with no hard review. Those books should have never been in there. The people that put them there have an agenda, and that agenda needs to be exposed. But what you have to do, you have to fix it at the top, because they clearly can't regulate themselves. So you have to fix it at the top and make sure that they don't get in there to begin with without at least the parents having a say in what is happening. Parents need to, you saw this in the debate, Governor, soon to be Governor Youngkin and former Governor McAuliffe talked about this. McAuliffe said parents shouldn't have a say in what's going on in your children's education. Leave it to the experts, we know best. And Governor Youngkin thinks that the parents should have a big say. And that's a big difference in this race, regardless of where you fall in the political spectrum. If you think parents should have more say in what's going on, then that governor, the Governor Youngkin is the candidate that's going to support that. Governor McAuliffe candidacy thinks that leave it to these experts who infiltrated these books into the schools without any, silently and quietly. And they've been there, Laura, for how long? 3 years? At least 3 years. They've been in our public schools for at least 3 years. And the only way they found out about it is the people in Texas were freaking out about it. And then somebody searched and found them in our Bayside High School library, and I think Tallwood, Lansdowne. So yeah, that's what's happened.
Okay. Does Glenn, do you have any comment on how those books got into the library, whose responsibility it is for them to get there in the first place?
So how those particular books got in there, I'm not sure. It's interesting. I've talked to the Virginia Board of Education about the textbooks that we have, and I didn't realize that we outsource all textbooks to a third party to just review for SOL content, not for anything else. So that we have to solve that issue. But no, I think we need to figure out exactly how those books got in there, what the approval process was, and then get one that is that will not allow things like this to be put in there unknowingly.
What do you have?
Oh, come on.
I don't think they would know the answer to that. Ron?
If you're a pedophile.
Any of these books have caused any of these children to partake in any adult behavior?
I don't think so. Ron?
Tim,
So the parents haven't disciplined the children enough to tell them to do it.
Oh,
Well, Ron was next, Teresa.
Tim, I challenged Nancy Guy the other night at the Aragona Civic League about the law about schools not having to report sex crimes. Her take on it is that the reason she voted for it was that it moves the reporting from the principals to the superintendents for felonies. And she actually said that if one student gropes another, that's a felony, and that's going to get reported to the police through the superintendent. Can you comment on what the law really says?
Yeah, sure. This is a very easy answer. So there's two types of sexual assaults. One's misdemeanor, one's felony. If you grab a girl in her butt, if you grab a girl in her breast, if you grab a girl in her vaginal area without penetrating it, that's misdemeanor sexual assault. Penetratable offenses become felony assaults. So they've taken away all misdemeanor reporting of any crime in schools in Virginia, to include taking this gavel and launching it at your teacher and hitting your teacher with it. That would be a misdemeanor assault. So taking a chair and throwing it at a teacher. And so we have to really start remembering that crimes of violence, juvenile system is there to intervene and intercept these children and get them on a different course. Covering those crimes up for statistical purposes cannot be the right way to go.
Diana, can I make a comment to that?
Do you have
real
any
quick?
comment on that, Glenn?
I definitely do. Nancy's lying. So here's what did that bill came out of education. I think it had a couple of positive votes because that bill should have never went to education. It came to education because they didn't want real attorneys to look at the bill. So us on education looked at it and said, okay, if someone's acting up in class, maybe not everything needs to be reported. Well, then we have a conversation in caucus about the bill, and our attorneys, the Rob Bells of the world, and Jason Miars get up and they say, okay, let's discuss what this bill really does, because it has a sexual assault piece. It went over to courts of justice, came back to the floor, and you can pull the tape of our minority leader, Todd Gilbert, getting up and asking the question of, now, does this mean a sexual assault does not need to be reported? And the Delegate Mullen said the minority leader is not hard of hearing. And the minority leader, Todd Gilbert, said, I'm sorry if I was hard of hearing. I just can't believe what I'm hearing. So for Nancy Guy to say, no, I didn't realize this, or no, it was going to be reported by a superintendent, is complete BS. We had this discussion on the floor, and all of us as Republicans were beside ourselves when the line of questioning came up from my minority leader, specifically about the reality that's happened today.
Okay, you had a question in back. You can ask a question of the treasurer or the, commissioner of the revenue as well while we're here.
My question
They're still
was
here.
Specific to the Virginia
Treasurer?
treasurer, yes, ma'am.
So you want to ask the candidates for treasurer what?
So I am, or recently, I found myself, I had orders to the state of Virginia. Less than 9 months after I arrived here on order, I could serve via certified mail a bill of tax, $298 property tax, because I purchased a vehicle outside of Virginia Beach City, but I had an address here in Virginia Beach. And I got served it once. I had the opportunity, given the particular situation that I am in, it did get
Reduced, removed?
it got removed. But I'm not an everyday civilian. My question is, in less than 15 months, when I am everyday, average day civilian, and all I want to do is go to work
We all hate that car tax.
So really, your question goes to the Commissioner of the Revenue's Office. When a vehicle comes into the locality of Virginia Beach and it has a garage jurisdiction of Virginia Beach, that's what comes to the Commissioner of Revenue's office to create that bill. Then it comes to my office to do the billing and collection of that. Now, as an active duty military, depending on your situation, you may be eligible to not pay that personal property tax. And I'm not sure your situation, but that sounds like maybe when you contacted the Commissioner of Revenue or you contacted the Treasurer's Office, we got you in touch with the Commissioner of Revenue's office to abate that.
17 months, but I am no longer active duty, which given
Continue
the
paying.
revenue office that gave me the opportunity to opt out of it, graciously appreciate it. When I am a civilian, I will be required to pay $288 per year simply because I drive a vehicle that
Yes.
takes me from
Yes.
the apartment that I pay tax on, that I pay,
Yes.
that I pay.
So, yeah, the simple answer,
Going to and from work in that also pays taxes, not just to the state.
Okay.
yes, sir.
Not just to,
The-
not just to the state.
The simple answer is yes. I can't predict the amount. Again, the assessment value comes from the Commissioner of Revenue's
My
office.
question is, why is there any amount of tax?
You have to
on
blame the
property
General Assembly.
that requires
It's,
me
it's the law.
to pay to for conveyance that allows me to make more money, to pay the state more money.
It's the law. That's
I
it.
understand your question. So a lot of it comes from state legislature and also the city code.
Okay.
The General Assembly got that law to give revenue to the city. And when Governor Gilmore was there.
You're talking, this is like
We're not okay with it. We just
This
can't
is
get
a
them to take it away.
fundamental issue of America and the Ben Loyola running for Commissioner of Revenue. Thank you. But this issue is fundamental issue of government, role of government, constitutional issue to provide for the common defense, liberty, freedom. Your tax, our revenues, business tax, property tax, all that stuff brings in revenue to the city of Virginia Beach. Why? To create an environment that you and I and others can live, to work, play, raise a family, exist. So there's a fundamental role of government that we have to pay for these things. Infrastructure, stuff that otherwise you'd have a troll at every intersection saying, here's $5 because it's a privately owned road. They're publicly owned roads. You'd have multiple power companies with individual poles everywhere. So you understand there's a role for government and we have to acknowledge that. I'm assuming you acknowledge that.
A fundamental role for
Yes, yes, sir. And therefore it has to be paid for.
per year because I own a vehicle is not a fundamental
You're
role.
using public infrastructure, sir. It has to be paid for. If you can come up with a better idea, I'd love to hear it, but it doesn't exist. Truly, we live in America, the greatest country in the world. I've traveled a lot of it. It's a reality. And that's why America, when it was founded, has become the greatest country in the world, an economic powerhouse. Unfortunately, what's happening right now with our leadership, that's being undermined in a great way. So taxes, we have to pay for it. We have to pay for the environment we live in. Thank you.
Laura, did you want to say anything about the car tax? Did she leave? Oh, okay. Okay.
Teresa had a question.
I just wanted to say to you over there, the General Assembly, Governor Gilmore tried to get rid of the car tax. It was supposed to have been phased in and the cities all complained about it and we never got rid of the car tax. Actually, we got rid of phase one of it and they still had to pay the city for it because they said they didn't have enough money for that, but yeah. So who had a next question? Teresa.
Mine was back with the school. Everybody talks about the school, but I was wondering from Glenn and Tim, what about this pornography being in the public library? Children can go out and check them out, our city library.
Well, I don't know. Does the General Assembly have any thing to do with pornography being in our public libraries? I mean, is there a section in the public library that's for non-children, you know? Does anybody have an answer to that?
Diana?
Parents.
Diana?
Yes.
Yeah, so when you start talking to public library, Dan, I can't speak to the public library, but this is where kind of a legal situation comes into play. So in the schools, I think it's a little different than the public libraries. In the public libraries, I don't believe, and I have to check, I don't believe you can have pornography in there. The issue is, wasn't it a Supreme Court case that actually said that you can't define pornography, but you know when you see it? So I don't know if that comes into play or not with the public libraries, but we'd have to, I don't know if Tim's still there, but we'd have to have probably an attorney opine on pornography in public buildings like libraries.
Okay, so do we have any other questions? Okay, Bill, because this is gonna have to be the last one, because I don't think this other lady is coming. Deb.
Well, for the two candidates for treasurer,
Laura's not here, only Lee's here.
oh, well, then that's fine. I would like you to tell us something more.
You can't hear you. Speak up.
I'm sorry. I would like her to tell us something more about her education and her background and the various duties in the treasury that involve things beyond just mailing out notes for revenue, but in investing the funds in short-term investment situations for the city.
Okay, what's your qualifications for being treasurer?
Okay, so like I said before, I have a bachelor's in accounting and a bachelor's in finance. I'm also a certified treasury professional, and that's a designation from the Association of Financial Professionals. And it has to do with cash management, investments, those types of operations. I'm also a master governmental treasurer, which there's a bunch of great words. It's a designation from the Treasurers Association of Virginia in conjunction with the University of Virginia's Weldon Cooper Center for Public Service. So what that does is gives very specific education directly related to the operations of the city treasurer's office. And those things as a bunch of acronyms, the blah, 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 blah. But what it really means is I have the skill set to do exactly what is demanded by in the treasurer's office position. And why that is important is because the city treasurer's office brings in over $2 billion in revenue each year. We have a $600 to $900 million investment portfolio. At the end of June, right after the taxes came, it went over $1 billion that I'm responsible for in the investments. The real estate taxes bring in $565 million a year. The personal property taxes are $110 million a year. Those are really big numbers, a lot of responsibility that goes with that, with the bank reconciliations, with the accounting of that, with the proper revenue recognition of that, which then goes off to funding and making decisions about the budget. And that's city council's authority to decide how that money is spent. But without that revenue coming in, the operations of the city would not be as robust as they could be. Now, do I think that the city of Virginia Beach can absolutely operate more efficiently? Absolutely. But those tax dollars go back into services for the citizens, and I take that job responsibility to heart.
Thank you. Have a good hand for all of our candidates that showed up today. All right. So I'd like to have a couple of announcements now. Laura, would you tell us what happened at the school board yesterday? And then after that, Paula, would you make an announcement about what you're doing? Okay.
So I made a few little notes here as people were asking
Diana,
questions. We had a few things happen last night. One is the discussion of the pornographic books in the school libraries was part of a discussion. In fact, the school board members who defend that being in there were so comfortable with it that when a citizen came in to speak on them, Annie Palumbo had pages blown up. Trinace Riggs told her that those pictures were inappropriate. And all of a sudden IT shut out the picture so nobody could see her. So it's inappropriate for grownups, but it's fine for children in the schools. That's a huge problem. I have sent 2 different emails to the superintendent to ask who was responsible for approving them and what is the process. And I have received 0 response. Another question that was asked last night, I asked Jack Freeman, well, actually I asked 2 weeks ago at a meeting and didn't get an answer. So I asked again last night, of all of the children that have been quarantined, and these are kids that are supposedly contact traced, been around somebody who is assumed to have been COVID positive. They're sitting home for 10, 14, 20 days. I asked what percentage of quarantine children have been found to actually develop symptoms at some point. 3.2%. Only 3.2% of children sitting home missing school are actually developing symptoms. So that is what? 96.8% of students sitting home are healthy children who are missing a minimum of 10 days of school, and teachers are being double worked because they have to deal with at home and at school and makeup. So this makes no sense whatsoever. I did want to just touch on the sexual assault reporting that we were talking about. This is hugely problematic. I had a teacher reach out and tell me that a 5th grade boy sexually assaulted a 4th grade girl on a school bus. And she described this 5th grade boy as a sexual predator. Think about that. This is an 10 or 11-year-old child. A child that age is not sophisticated enough to be a sexual predator unless, 1, he's been exposed to pornography, which was a how-to book for him, and they're in the library. Or 2, he's a victim. Most sexual predators have been victims. And we have heard time and time again that our criminal justice system is the largest mental health service program going. So when we fail to report, and there's a reason teachers are mandated reporters, they catch things that fall through the cracks. When we fail to report, we send these 10 or 11-year-old predators who are probably also victims back home to their predators. If this were reported, they might actually get the help they needed at a young age. So that's another big problem. The resolution. Carolyn Weems wrote a resolution stating that our equity training and CRT are not synonymous. We have been hearing from the majority on the school board and the superintendent that we don't teach CRT. Passing this resolution then should have been a no-brainer. It's a matter of saying we're not teaching that America is racist. We're not saying there are not people that are racist. Certainly there are. We have had policies over time that have been racist, and people know that, and I think that should be taught. But stating that this country is fundamentally racist, that some people are oppressors and some people are oppressed, it's just not okay. And if they are stating that we don't teach CRT, passing a resolution that states we don't teach CRT should not have been a problem. The fact that 7 people had a problem with this tells me that they know we're teaching it and that they support it. That's a problem. So that was a huge brouhaha last night. So it failed. It failed 7-4. Vicki Manning, Carolyn Weems, Jennifer Franklin, and I all voted in favor of it. And the rest of the board voted against the resolution. So as near as I can tell, they absolutely do support CRT, unfortunately. Yes, sir.
Did they give a rationale? I'm sorry, I had a conflict. So I haven't spoken about that. What did they say? Yeah, we believe capitalism is racist, and yes, whites are oppressive, and did they?
What was their reason for not supporting?
So one reason was that we don't need it. Another reason was we don't govern by resolutions, which is pretty strange since our whole budget is a resolution. We vote on a budget resolution every year, and that's how we do our budget. So that's not true. I know that there was an email that went to the superintendent, And he stated that there is no way to discuss capitalism without teaching that capitalism is racist. It's in an email. He sent it out. Dr. Spence, yes, said that there's no way to teach about capitalism without stating that capitalism is racist. We were also told that it's just negative to have a resolution that states what we don't do, except that right now there's a lot of public outcry concerning about what we do. So stating that we don't do this, it seems like that would have been an easy way to stand up and say, we say we're not doing it, and now we're passing a resolution to say we're not doing it. Really, there were no good reasons.
Thank you.
Oh, you have another question? Who? Oh, Daphne.
Can you state the question?
So Daphne's asking about policies about the bathrooms. At the last meeting, the transgender policy did pass. Anyone, students, teachers, parents, guests in the school can use any bathroom or any locker room that they want without question. And they're stating that this shouldn't be a problem. It also extends to field trips. You could be a chaperone on a field trip and room with anyone you want because you're a girl today, a boy tomorrow, students, adults, it's okay, according to this policy. And we keep hearing that this is not going to be a problem, except now we find out that Loudoun County has been covering up the fact that a boy in a skirt went into a girl's restroom and sexually assaulted her. Twice. So. Okay, that part I didn't see. Apparently it happened at one school, he was put in another school, and it happened at another school. So clearly we see that it can happen. And yeah, it does. It can happen and it does happen. Oh, the other reason for not passing the resolution on defining equity was the superintendent said that if we have a policy that states we will not teach things in a divisive manner, he has no way to enforce that because who decides if it's divisive? And that would just be, it would just be too hard to enforce that, to police it and decide what is divisive and what is not because it's subjective. So pornography, yes, that is subjective. We're going to have a policy review committee meeting tomorrow, and one of the policies we're voting on discusses excessive clapping. And so that's subjective too, but I guarantee you those same 7 people will vote for it.
Okay, Paula, she's with Students First VA, right? So she wants, it's also on the same study, what's going on in school. So she wants to tell you what they're doing.
Thanks, Laura.
It's good to follow Laura because she's going to make my job easier, explaining a lot of the reasons why we need to recall people on this school board. So she largely explained it. There are so many things that have gone on, and I think we can categorize it really as a complete assault on parental rights for political reasons. And we would love to take back our schools. We believe that it, like going at the legislative level, going for the gubernatorial level, all of it is so important. But the bedrock of everything really is our school system. And as I'm a parent who didn't pay attention to that. And so now, like many of us, we are waking up and paying attention. So we are really honing in. We try to put pressure on them constantly, and we need to recall them so that we can put in place a board that's constitutional and that respects the rights of parents, wants to educate and not indoctrinate children in the school system. So for that purpose, we are recalling 6 members of the school board. We're recalling, of course, the chair and vice chair, Carolyn Rye and Kimberly Melnick, and then Carolyn Anderson, Dottie Holtz, Trinace Riggs, and Jessica Owens. And in that, it's going to be a huge undertaking, but it's a necessary one. So we're going to keep at it till we get all the signatures. I know a lot of people here have signed. We need any Virginia Beach resident it doesn't matter who where you stand in the political spectrum. I'm sorry, Virginia Beach registered voter, thank you. It doesn't matter where you stand in the political spectrum. Your child is more important than that. So we're asking everyone we can. And what we also are looking for are people who might help us collect signatures, people who are willing to go to sit at different organizations. Like we had people at the gun show last week. We're having people at all the voting stations whenever we can. So I have cards and I'm happy to give them to anyone who would like to follow what we're doing. You can go to studentsfirstva.com. And if you were willing to help us, and we would very much like it if you would, you can just email on this on the card, info@studentsfirstva.com to help us do that. And also, if you're going to help us in another way is to donate money, because it's an expensive proposition to do all this, but we want to do it. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. What we have to get is in each person, in each school board members election, thank you. We have to go to what their total vote was, not just who voted for them, but who voted for their opposition. Take the total of that, and then we have to get 10% of Virginia Beach registered voters to sign the petition to recall them. Once we have that 10, and it's going to vary. For instance, Kim Melnick was, I think we need 13,400 or 500, but Beverly Anderson, because she was reelected at large in the presidential election year, hers, we will need 30,000 to bring her before a judge. In the city of Virginia Beach, then what you do is you bring them before a judge, and the judge decides if, oh, thank you. She gave me the exact numbers that we need. You bring it before a judge, and the judge decides if the school board member has in fact violated the law in the way that it is described in the petition for them. The specific petition we're using is not everything that's been done. In the particular case of these people, we are saying that because they did, that in the way that they kept the schools closed, in the poor way that they provided services, that not only did they hurt the just average general student, but they really didn't provide specific services that helped those individuals that had special needs and needed IEPs. And for instance, I spoke with one woman, I won't say what her function was in the school board just yesterday or the day before, talking about how she's a therapist in the school. And her therapy requires actual physical interaction with the child, but she was told that she has to do it on Zoom. And that is just, she said, she said 90% of the time that I did that was wasted time. Now that they're back in school and she has the child in her class or in her room, she can provide all the services that were necessary. And the fact that the schools were closed hurt so many children, but it really hurt those individuals, those children who receive special services the most. So we are recalling them for refusing to provide those services to those children when they could have done it. Next question. Robert?
Will you, Paula, will you and your team be here at Mom's Kitchen Saturday morning?
Yes, we'll be here
from
Saturday
8 to
morning.
10?
From 8 to 10,
and
yes.
Giving away free coffee for everybody to sign.
No, I thought you were doing that. That was you, Robert.
Lee Henderson, where's?
I just have a comment.
Yes.
I talked to my neighbor, and it's a young couple that has babies, and they were like, well, we don't have any children in the school, and I actually have to say that you have no children there.
No. You don't have to have children in.
Their children are coming up.
Mhm. They are, and we
They're gonna leave Virginia Beach, but not straight out.
exactly. And there are a lot of people leaving Virginia Beach city schools because they don't like what's going on within them. And that's not what the schools are there to provide a quality education, and they aren't. Their focus is social engineering now. It's not critical thinking education. Yes, Bill?
Has anyone from the press approached you or your husband or anyone involved with this recall petition or any kind of an interview of any sort?
Have you been interviewed by the press?
Well, basically, we've been written about, and yeah, very, very different. And we've largely try not to interact with them. We let other people do that, because what we've noticed is when we have talked with anyone in the press about it, What gets printed has nothing to do with the actual content of what we're there at the school to oppose and what these petitions are about. It's very, as you know, it's very prejudiced. It's very,
So last one, Andy, because we're gonna have to do a pre-business meeting before we have to get out of here.
Kim Molick is one of the ones you want to recall, right? Isn't she running for delegate? So we should know that too.
yes, she's running against Glenn Davis. And one of the things that it's not the goal of our petition, but we're hoping that people pay attention to the school board and what's going on, and that awakens them in that election as to how she functions and how she votes. And thank you, Diana, for letting me speak. And sign my petitions if you haven't already. All right, okay.